Okay, so today I want to talk about 3 good activities that you can do either virtually or in person in TA training, or actually these also apply to instructor training. And I'm thinking about these for the beginning of the term, but they could also be done anywhere during the term. The goal of all of these activities is really at least twofold. First of all, to develop your team dynamics. I should say threefold. To develop team dynamics. Secondly, to really prepare your instructional team for the mission of the course, not just what they're doing in the course. And then to kind of model the style of active learning that hopefully you're wanting them to achieve. They could possibly do activities like this in their course, but they could also just, you can show them how you can get people involved in doing activities. And each of these activities is a style, certainly, that I did not invent. They're ones that I consider part of my toolbox of styles of activities. And I might have even gotten the particular prompts from someone else too. But these are activities that I found useful. So the first one is a gallery walk. And in a gallery walk, traditionally, when you're face-to-face, you usually have poster papers or chalkboards around the room. I find it very useful to use those gigantic sticky notes that you can get. They're kind of expensive for a pad, but you find them pretty useful if you are coordinating a massive course and often have groups together. And you put them as far apart around the room as possible, really thinking about them as an art gallery. That's why it's called a gallery walk. And the atmosphere that you're going to want to create around the room is one of people kind of walking around, admiring I will call them pieces of art, or the pieces that you are going to create together, contemplating them, thinking about them, and also adding to them themselves. So each of those pieces, poster papers, or you could also use chalkboards, they will each have a prompt on them and a question. So at the beginning of the term, if I'm thinking about wanting to prepare instructors or TAs for the ultimate mission of my course, some questions that I found useful are, how are your students same or different from who you are now? How are students the same or different from who you were when you were a first-year student? And what are your students' hopes and what are your students' dreams? As I spoke about in the first video of this series, one of the key things for preparing an instructional team, I believe, is getting them to really understand who their students are and develop some empathy for their students. And I believe that each of these questions help with that. So during the activity, you would often give them a few minutes to think about these questions, perhaps on their own, and then begin the gallery walk by walking around the room, giving them the opportunity to add to those. Sometimes I would give them Post-it notes that they can use, so they don't have to stand there and write on it. They can just kind of write on the Post-it note and then just stick it up, so they don't feel quite as on the spot. So as you're doing the gallery walk, I would give it ample time, and usually I also say no talking during that time. So it really does create the atmosphere of an art gallery. And then to close up the activity, assign kind of equal numbers of people to each of the artworks, your pieces of art that you have, and give them about 5 minutes to discuss the responses and to gather common themes from them. If you have post-it notes, it's quite convenient because they can move them around and then gather common responses and find themes. If your group is small enough, you can then have them go around to each of the posters and hear from the groups who were summarizing them. If not, you can do that from the desks. And then if you are online, in some ways, these activities are easier to set up online, but it's always more difficult to get involvement, I think, when you're online, or really to get the same kind of atmosphere of quietude. So this is one that's really good on Padlet. You can also get it to go on Desmos. Padlet is just very naturally set up. This is almost like the default Padlet mode. So you can create a kind of column for each category or each question in Padlet, give them some time to add, and then I would usually assign breakout groups in my Zoom or my Microsoft Teams to think about common responses, and again, one breakout group per question. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add to that, except that it leads really nicely into the next activity. And this is a putting in order, or you can also do this one as a categorizing activity. For this one, I'm thinking about, maybe I'll just set the scene first. So what am I doing to prepare for this activity? Well, this is the one that I usually hate preparing, but it's always worth it because I have all these little bits of paper that I have to put in Ziploc bags. And these little bits of paper are different skills and different topics from the course. So if it's a calculus course, I might have skills like epsilon delta proofs, or modeling data from the real world that doesn't fit a standard function nicely. So I might have those kind of topics in one baggie, and then in another baggie I might have skills like speaking about mathematics to another person or writing a formal proof. So I have two separate baggies, skills and topics. And these are all things that might appear in a calculus course. So you might guess what I'm going to do. I could either have them put it in order or categorize. And oftentimes I find it's nice to categorize or put in order a couple of different ways. So you could have them, I'll just say the put in order, and then you can build kind of obvious categories from that. You can have them build or put in order from important topics or skills to should not be taught or should not be assessed. A skill that students should have at the end of this course a skill that we should expect students to have at the beginning of this course when they come in, to one that we should build during the course and not expect students to have at all. Or we could have like a first year goal to a fourth year goal. So thinking about more on the degree level. This one often generates a lot of great discussion. It is best done in pairs, I find. And then when they have some categories, you can put them in quads. So put two groups together. And that is when the fun begins, because oftentimes the quads will be thinking in an entirely different way. In the instructions, you want to emphasize that you're thinking about your students, and so then you can draw it back to some of the things that you've already established about who your students are, the goals for your students, and all of that. And then start to make some of these connections and applications. And this activity is very good for getting instructors and TAs to start to think like educational designers a little bit more. If you're online, you don't have to deal with the baggies. And I have gone to online for even some of my in-person training to avoid the baggies of little pieces of paper that can get lost everywhere. Again, I think when you're online and you don't have that, like, sometimes the friction actually creates some better discussion. So again, sometimes that friction is worth it. But this is something, again, that Padlet is quite good at. Probably Desmos has a better interface for putting things in order because it actually has an activity that is called Put This in Order. And again, for the kind of presenting it, I always find that the putting in order, when you look at the class results for some of these online things, is not very satisfactory, because they often give this is the most popular order, or this is the most popular first, second, third, fourth, and you have 15 topics. That's very meaningless. So really, rather than trying to present it as use some of that technology, really that pair and then quad discussion is very useful. The final activity is one that you definitely know, but I think it's always good to mention, and never think that it is below a group, because it's something that even I need reminders of sometimes, and it's the good old one-sentence summary. This is a good one for reviewing aspects of the syllabus, and again, getting instructors or TAs to think about the syllabus. The decisions that we make as instructional designers who have been thinking about the syllabus for all summer, years perhaps, and we think that decisions are really obvious, might not be obvious to them. And your TAs are going to be the ones getting questions like, why do we have to do this? Or what relevance does this have? And we all know about the TAs that are going to badmouth us. Perhaps you have the blessing of not knowing about that. But it is good to review those answers with them, at least so that they know what they are supposed to say or what they could say. And it's informative for you as well to see some of the common misconceptions that you might get. So one prompt you might use is, we are using blank in this class because blank. Okay, so you would fill in that first blank. So we are using this assignment or assessment in class because, and then they would fill in that last blank, because blank. And then to take it up, you can model a way to take it up that you would like them to use. So that might depend on your tutorial setup or your class setup or whatever other instructions you've given them. I always find very effective to do the think, pair, share model, where you have them think about it, write it down on their own, then share it with someone next to them. And then often I take that a step further. I go think, share, share, think, pair, share, I should say. Think, pair, share. So think, pair, quad, share, something like that, where they get into a pair and then they get into a quad and then they share. And if they are online, again, this is one where I think the sharing actually in some ways works better, certainly the whole class sharing. I like the flood the chat model, especially for smaller group sizes, of say up to 50. So you'll just ask them, You'll put in the prompt, we are using this assessment or this platform in this class because blank. And then say, okay, don't put your answer in the chat. We're going to be asking you to press enter in just a few minutes, but don't press enter yet. So type your answer in the chat, but don't press enter. And you have to keep saying don't press enter, type your answer in the chat, but don't press enter, just like your students, okay? Keep saying that. If your TAs are teaching online, you might have another way of taking it up, like using breakout groups first that you prefer to use. So those are 3 activities for TA training that I hope are useful. Each of these reflect the overall essence of TA training, which I believe is really important. That is to emphasize the why over the how. So always integrate the mission of your TAs over the technicalities. Technicalities they can pick up on, they can Google, they can AI, whatever. But what you really want to change during your training is their hearts. So changing hearts, then change minds. That's key. Okay, so take care. Good luck.